my mom was a huge part of my life. And
it's okay.
About a month and a half now, lost her to cancer. So. What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Hydrated Mind and Soul. Really quick, if you have a chance, make sure you like, subscribe, share our podcast if you're enjoying it. We absolutely love you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about grief and grace, light after loss.
Yes, and this is Amanda here, Dr. Hackford. Grief, I think everyone goes through at some point in their life. Actually, 100% of us, all of us at some point in our life will experience grief. And I kind of want to talk about understanding grief as well as misconceptions about grief today, because it affects all of us at some point. So it's a little bit of a real raw topic and can touch people the right or wrong way sometimes, depending on where you're at in your steps of grief, or maybe you haven't experienced it yet, and this will help you when you do. But we both have experienced grief already, and so we know exactly how it feels, but it's different for both of us. Just as it is different for every single person, grieving is a process that not everyone processes the same, and that's okay. And that's another thing that I think is a misconception, is that grief is supposed to happen in a certain way and be over in a certain time period, and these things that we either want to believe or other people that have been through grief tell us, but their grief is different. So they can't give us a timeline or tell us this is what you need to do and you'll feel better. And one of the biggest, I hate using the word lie, but one of the biggest sayings that people say is that, with time will heal it. Time will heal it.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be upfront and honest with you that grief never goes away.
Yeah.
It gets better. Time makes it better. Time helps us to learn how to handle it in a better way. And
until you hear that one song.
And get, and find that peace that we need to get to with the grief and the loss. But one song or something somebody says or whatever hits the wrong way for that moment. So where it starts out where it's all the time, and then eventually as years pass or months, or because we're all different in our timeline, you have good days where you remember, but it's a happy thought. It's a happy memory. And you're like, and you didn't cry. You were laughing about a good thing. And so, we all know, and maybe we all don't know, I'm speaking as like we know here in this room, that, I lost my granny, and then just a few years ago lost my dad, who, okay, hold on.
Yep.
I thought we were ready. We thought we were ready. Okay. Thought I was ready. Okay. So,
man.
My dad was a huge part of my life, and I'm so grateful that I actually had a good, supporting, loving in my life father. And he passed a few years ago, and that was rough. That was a rough one. And every day is usually good. I think about him, daily, but most days are a good day, and we tell a funny story that, we did with him or had with him, or, we talk about him and his fishing, and it doesn't hit me like all of a sudden I'm just crying and down and upset like it did in the beginning. And so now it's a real quick, and I said that I was not going to cry on the podcast, but if you watch the whole show, which I hope you do, if you have any kind of grief, I might not be able to promise that anymore. I said that to myself, so I probably lied to myself this morning. That's okay. And then Mikey here has had a very new experience with grief. He had a very close mom.
Yeah, my mom was a huge part of my life, and
it's okay.
About a month and a half now, lost her to cancer. So it's rough.
It is. It's hard. So that's why a lot of us don't want to talk about grief, just as we've said in some previous shows, is that when it hurts, we want to hide it.
Yeah.
When it hurts, we want to put it away and stuff it down and things, when really in all actuality, hurting is helpful, is what I like to say. You got to get it out. You got to get it out. And it may take a while for you to get to the point where you want to get it out, and that's okay too. And we all have to remember, one of the huge misconceptions again with grief is grief does not always mean a death.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, when I say grief, I don't mean somebody died. Obviously, that's our biggest one, and the most common form of grief is losing someone that's close to you or a loved one.
Could be a friend that you thought was your friend that just like flips on you randomly and disappears. I've seen that multiple times.
Yeah, exactly.
You thought that you guys were best friends. So I've seen it with my wife and some of her friends too. Yeah. It's been wild.
And that hurts, that you thought somebody cared about you and now they're gone. They're not they didn't die, but they're not in your life anymore, and you miss them, or times you've had with them. A divorce, that's a hard one. That's a grief process. Even if they did something horrible to you, it still hurts. You had this person in your life for a long time, and now you've got to adjust to them being gone, and that's a grief process. There's grief with children who have an absent parent, or there's all different forms of grief. There's not one form, although the one that does probably happen to every one of us is at some point in our life we're going to lose somebody we are close to, or our family member, a friend, family, whomever it is, a coworker, a loss that, because we're never promised tomorrow. We all experience loss at some point, because all of us hopefully we know the Lord, and for me specifically, the only light after the loss for me is whoever I've lost. If I know that they had a relationship with Jesus, then I know I'm going to see them again.
For sure.
And for me, that's what gets me past the day-to-day of not being upset.
That peace.
Yes, that's so peaceful to me to know, and why it's important for the people around me to know and have a relationship with Jesus is because I can say, the Bible literally states we should celebrate at a death and mourn at a birth, which is completely opposite of what we do here. Because think about the world we live in, the world's always been. There's always been terrible people and terrible things that happen and horrible things. So if somebody's born into this mess of a world, even though they have these people that love them and they can have a great life, but it's this world is just day by day getting so bad. Everything you hear every day is like, oh, why would we want to bring someone into that? Of course we do. Of course we want to bring a family and a child and everything, because that's a blessing. But when you think about it in terms of what we're bringing it into, you're like, oh, this is pretty bad,
Are we sure?
So like, we really want to bring somebody here to this, no matter where you're at. Other places way worse than here. So we all know that too. Like we're in the United States. Like we're the place everybody wants to come to. I'm not sure that, but truly there are the other, the secondary countries that have it, like we talked about before, have it a lot worse than us, but we think ours is terrible and everybody's is. But that kind of brings me to the stages. There's in psychology and psychiatry, there's 5 main stages of grief. And however long it takes you to get to each one is different. I don't know which one you're at now,
no
obviously,
idea, but we're about to find out.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the stages, and you can like,
session too.
That's me. That's where I'm at. Or I'm not that one yet. But and what's funny is when you hear the stages, you will compare it to other things that are not necessarily a death, because they go along with that, like a divorce, losing a friend. You go through these stages, typically, again, I always say not everybody's the same. So maybe somebody skipped a step and was able to make it right to the third one, that's fine. But the very first, and normally this one doesn't last as long. This is probably the shortest stage, but number 1 stage is denial, shock. Like denial is, oh my God, did that really happen? Wait, was this real? Like you get the phone call and you're, hold on. No, it's like a shock statement, like a stage where you're just like, and sometimes at least for myself, when I got the phone call, with my dad. I had just spoken to him that morning. And so I just saw him the night before. So the phone call was like, I literally threw the phone on the ground. I was like, I think I'm dreaming. Like this, and I'm looking around at the people I was in the shop, my daughter's shop. And I'm like, I looked at her and looked at her, I'm like, I'm dreaming. Like, and then it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. That call was real. I'm looking at them. I was like, did I just answer the phone? Like, did I, and the phone's on the ground. So I was like, like threw the phone down. Like, I don't want to, who is this?
Lies.
It's not a joke. Well, you're lying, And really, ultimately I did.
Yeah.
And so, and then you get to okay, this is real. And then you're just walking through these steps of, you're still in denial. You're just going through the motions. You're going through the motions. You go to the hospital. You go to the funeral home. You go to and I'm not even sad yet. And
felt like a zombie.
I'm like, yeah.
For like a month.
It's like
I was literally just going through the motions. Felt like a zombie. I was just like, literally, like you said, like almost like blinders on. And then all of a sudden, one day I woke up. I was like, where did I go?
When all the stuff that needs to be done is done, especially if you're one of us and you're the person that's handling the majority of the things. Sometimes the people that don't have much to handle don't have to go through that for several days. But when you're the one that's, talking to the hospital and deciding which funeral home and, making decisions and letting other people know and having to go home and then tell your kids and the things like going on, it's just, you're just in zombie mode. Like, I don't think I didn't, it was several days later that I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like I didn't even cry. Like, and then you do the whole, then you start feeling bad. So like stage 2 is anger. Stage 2 is normally anger. You get mad, whether it's, I didn't have a lot of this anger. This is a very common part, but that's why I say about stages. For me, stage 2 anger was not, to me, that was more of when I had a split. I got mad second. I was like, wait a minute, I do this, But for me, the anger was not quick. It was like a little bit of selfish anger, like kind of mad that he was gone.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing that kept me this a real short time was that I did have the relationship with Jesus. I did know that absent from the body is present with the Lord. I knew he went right there. I know I'm going to see him again. So for me, the anger wasn't, but a lot of people get stuck when they don't have that. They get stuck and then like, why would God do this? Why did he have to leave? This God's not real if he's going to take, somebody. It's my dad. So the natural order is normally a parent goes first. So you expect a parent to go first. People that lose their children, the children are supposed to go first.
No.
In our worldly mind here, you're
or like an older brother or sister, like my mom losing their younger sister.
That's where you're like, oh, like why would he take my children? Like they didn't do anything. They were good. They were innocent. So that's where sometimes that anger piece will linger or go longer. And everybody's different. I
got mad like a little bit, but it wasn't at God. It was just like, why are you gone?
That's me.
We can't do this. Like, why are you gone? And it was really cool though, because me and my siblings just kind of like got together.
Good.
And teamed up and did all the stuff we had to do. So that's where that whole like zombie land came into play. Because I just felt up until like, 2-3 weeks ago, I felt like it was just, I don't know. It was like blurry.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. I know it is. And then your third stage of the 5 is what we call the bargaining stage. And what that means basically, and this is for people, I mean, if you want to go into like depth or anything, but this is a scale. It's a Elizabeth Ross scale that we go by in the actual mental health world. But so it can, not everything's per textbook, but this is like the general idea of what we use. And so 3 is that we call the bargaining stage, and what that means is that, and I definitely did this and then had to say, whoa, no, we're not doing this. It took me a while to get there though. So this is the stage I stayed in for a while, which is where your questions all come in, even if they're to yourself. So for me, like, if I had only done this, if I should have said this more, I did those kind of, you could say regret. We don't like to use that word because you shouldn't. Regret shouldn't be it's more bargaining with yourself or others of what you should or shouldn't have done, because those always immediately those come to your mind. Like the moment I tortured myself, as a matter of fact, until I started like literally rebuking Satan, like he is torturing you. He is on your shoulder, tormenting you. Absolutely not. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, because he was allowing me to torture myself. And I let him, because we have cameras at the shop. And so I literally went to the camera and replayed the phone call over and over. I first played it to see if I said I love you. And I realized I didn't say I love you. And so I replayed it and re-listened to it. Okay, guys. So this should show you that therapists and psychologists need therapy too. We're normal. So, but I, until the point where I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, like, let's not listen to Satan and let's get your doctor back together, because this is what you help people do. You shouldn't be doing what you're telling them not to do. Like, dry it up, a bad word. That one's a little, I'm not going to say that one. That I told myself to quit being. And so, but that was like, because I kept saying, like, you didn't say I love you. You didn't say I love you. And then all the people around me are like, he knew how much you love me. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't say it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I said it the night before, but the phone call, he called me first before I got the ER doctor call. So he called me and I knew he was okay. I didn't even expect that, because he called me and said, hey, I'm not feeling good. I'm calling the ambulance. And, I said to him, I'm closer to the hospital than where his house is. So I told him, I said, okay, when you get there, just call me and I'll meet you. Like, I'll come right there. And so like I had even asked him if he wanted, I was like, do you want me to come get you? He's like, no, I already called the ambulance and I'm walking to the driveway. And like so he's walking out to the driveway and I'm thinking, oh, he must, like, maybe it's anxiety, because he was saying like his heart felt weird and stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just meet you there. Like, and normally anytime my dad had anything happen, I met him. I was, so anyway, and so the next time the phone rang, I'm expecting it to be him, and I'm walking toward my car to go get in the car and meet him at the hospital. And instead it's, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so. And I was like, so that was like a whole, like, I just threw the phone like, this is a joke, which my dad did like to play funny, sick jokes where you would think like you're like, people, I'm like, he's kidding. Like, to the point where he's so serious in restaurants and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to do something for you. I'm like, he's kidding. You're kidding. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, he's really kidding. Like, please. Because so I'm thinking, this is really bad. Like, this is not funny to do to me if this is what's going on. So I really was in the, like, just no. know, and so that's how that played out. So
I think it's different too. Like there's different, obviously, especially when you lose someone, there's different ways that people die. Like the difference, that was more sudden, right? And I think that my dad was more sudden. I knew he was sick, but all of a sudden he was doing really well. And then one day he started tanking and they called me and they're like, yo, you got to come to the hospital if you want to see him. And I booked a flight out. And when I landed, he passed. They called me right after I landed. And it was like he felt my presence. Yeah. And then with my mom, so that was tough, even with all the abuse and all the stuff. Yeah. It was still tough. It's still your dad, so hard, right? Yeah. And with my mom, it was like more drawn out where, I'm so glad that she came here last year and we got all that time together and all that good stuff. But when she got sick, it was like everything was fine until I moved her back to Virginia, and then she was comfortable. She was where she wanted to be, and I think she just let go.
That's important, yeah.
But we loved her, and through the whole process, it was so cool. Her. Yeah, we just literally loved on her. We sung her songs, and we held her hand, and it was all the way up until the last day. It was just beautiful. Yeah.
So that was sudden for me, but he had been sick for a long time and come out of things. He had a heart valve replacement, but then he got better, and then then he had kidney failure and was on dialysis, and then he was feeling better, and then he got COVID in the hospital, and because of all his other health issues, it was kind of hit him worse,
Yeah.
And so then he came home, he was on oxygen, and I took him to the doctor, he got better, and then this was only like a couple weeks after, like, oh, he's fine and doing good, and he doesn't need the oxygen, and then all of a sudden it was just like, boom, like this, he was home, and we went over, and that was where the other like bargaining thing came in, was where, that night before he said to me, you don't understand what it's like to be alone. And I'm like, what do you mean alone? Like, we live 2 streets over here. We see you all the time. You're at our house every week for dinner. Like, and he said, but alone, like he was single alone. Like, my mom and dad were both good parents and both got along with each other, which is a very different from what happens today normally, but they put what they had aside for their child, which is what you should do. And that's a whole nother topic. But, literally where my mom was going through chemo at his house, helping us clean out the home and things like that. And her husband, my stepdad, that's wow. How mature, like that's where they're at. So, which everybody should be able to do for the sake of their child or somebody they love. Side note. So that just brought me to even, hey, everybody, forget what I was going to say about that. So there we are for that blooper today, because that just took me, this is going to be hard for me. So no, but it's tough. It's hard because it just puts my mind all over the place, but
it makes you kind of jumbled.
The bargaining. That's what I said, is when he said he did it, like the alone, and I'm thinking, well, we're all around, but he said, he'd been single from me being 3, as far as never finding a wife or a partner to live with, like that kind of thing. So night by night going to sleep alone. Here I am thinking like, oh, I like when I'm alone. Like, my husband will go off to a little hunting trip, but that's different. It's short. They come back, so you're like, oh, I like to stay by myself and, whatever.
My wife hates it.
But it's not long term. So that's where it's like, okay, like, wow, you're a butthole because you're so over here saying you like to be alone. But I know Brandon's coming back. Yeah. It's different because he knows there is nobody. He doesn't have a wife. It's not short term. He goes to bed every single night by himself, so, and sometimes people, that's just, he knows everybody around him loved him, but, there wasn't that person on a everyday night basis, which I like to say I talked to him literally almost every day, occasionally days where I didn't, but most days I at least talked to him on the phone, at least that. Yeah. And so, and all of those were love you, bye, but I just tormented myself with that last phone call. Yeah. So, and that last, what I heard from him the night before about being lonely. Yeah. And so, and I won't go on to the next part because that was a whole, so.
And do you think that, like, and I saw this with my mom too, because obviously they divorced when I was 21, so that's 15 years ago. They finally got divorced when I was 21. And for those 15 years, she did have a few boyfriends. She had one that was really good. But do you think that, like, the grief of losing that person, that's like another form of grief too? Like, not being able to find someone? Like what you were talking about with your dad? Is that like another form of grief as well? Or would you call that something different?
It could be, but there's several things it can be. Like I said, not everything is a cookie cutter. So it depends on that specific person, things they've gone through, how bad was the breakup, what was the death like, what was the relationship like. I mean, there's so many things that go into that, what I like to say, my intake of a person. And just, or it could be a combination. It could be a combination, people, how they feel about themselves. That's a real big key factor in finding the next person or no one. And ultimately, I like to say that, it's okay to not find it. I mean, if you find the one person that was your person and something happens to them or something, or not necessarily death, but that, or we go our ways because of whatever broke us to that point, they may not find that again. It's rare to find, if it was really truly the person. I think that love is not a feeling. So I'm, some people disagree with me, because when I say you found that true love, that one person, to me, that love is not a feeling. That's more of a lust. We met each other. Oh, we love each other. That's lust to me. Love is an action that you choose to love that person because, as all of us know, marriage is you are with that person day in, day out.
It's work.
All that. And it's now you get to know what annoys you about them and living with them, what the two opposites are. Like, why is that on the counter? I don't want junk on the counter. And then they're like, all those day-to-day things that you're like, but then you come back to, you know what though? I'm making the choice to love this person because this is who I chose. So now I'm going to choose to love them through thick, through thin. I do have 2 deal breakers, and I tell everybody's deal breakers are different. So whatever your deal breaker is, that's to you as far as relationship terms, what you can work through, work out, the hard times. A lot of grief puts people in hard times. You lost a child. Mm-hmm. The grief of the 2 of you end up pushing you away rather than bringing you together. Some it's the opposite. But I mean, for me personally, deal breakers are cheating. Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And abuse.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that I can pretty much figure out, work out, deal with, or get through literally
little
anything
arguments,
else. But that's me.
Stuff.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's different. Bigger, little, whatever. We can get through them. Like, I might be mad, but I'll be fine later. Or he might be mad, but we'll be fine later. But that's any typical relationship. I mean, you're going to get mad about something.
My favorite thing is, go to sleep, baby. I love you. I'll see you in the morning. We're not doing this.
Yeah, we got to go to bed peaceful, though, right? Yeah. Like, don't take your anger to bed.
Yeah, I'm like, we'll be fine. Like, I'm gonna see you in the morning, and
let's start over.
We're gonna restart. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, let's put a pause on that. It's always at bedtime. Am I right? Am I right,
yeah,
John? Are you our producers over there? He's married too. I was like,
he's like, we don't fight.
At least with me, I always feel like it's always evening. Well, maybe because we're at work during the day, so like at evening, not every day, but like when there is like an issue you're aggravated about, it's like at night, and then you're like, oh, like I want to, and so to me, I'm like, I stick on the like, don't go to bed angry, and stuff. So I'm over here like, ugh, I want to go to bed mad. I'm like, I'm like the stubborn, mean one.
That's Beatrice.
So everybody's they say opposites, attract.
Ours are opposite.
It seems like it. Sometimes they don't. It seems like the typical is, and I'll be honest and upfront with everybody. I'm the mean one. I'm the stubborn one. My husband is the sweet one. We're opposite. So I'm the one that like wants to go to bed angry, and he's like, wait, no, I love you. I'm like, did you watch Hallmark movies? Like, why are you being so nice when I'm mad and I was just mean? And it's just as, but I'm sure there's opposite of that.
Baby, you hear that?
Yeah, so I'm a mean one. So he's great. He's really great for putting up with me because I'm a lot.
Yeah, so, that's hilarious.
The doctors that deal with crazy are crazy. So that's what, at least I tell myself that to feel better. So, but then we get to stage 4, which we call the depression stage, but that doesn't mean you're clinically depressed. It just means that's where more of the sorrow comes in. Like the more focusing on the sorrow or the sad, where you're kind of, the realities really set in, because now we've been through these other stages, and you're really noticing, like, you go to pick up the phone and you're like, oh, wait,
Dude,
and like, like
a week and a half ago.
Yeah, stuff like that. Because then it's like reality and sorrow, and they're kind of mixed together. So that's why we call it depression. Not that people can't sink into a depression from grief. They don't, but not everybody does. So we don't use that term as like, oh, they're depressed. They could be. I mean, people do. But that's what we mean when we, on that scale, when we say depression. That's more of that sorrow and reality kind of coming together. I've done that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go over to my dad's, and nope, just kidding. I'm not, because he only lived the 2 streets over to me. And like, that was like after months later, or like, his, picking up the phone, and I was like, oh my gosh, nope, can't tell him that. Like,
my long drives, whenever I'm on a long drive for work, I'm going to Ocala, Naples, even West Palm, and I'm going somewhere, and I literally go to do it recently. And I was like,
and it'll
happen. Why, Mom? And I'll just talk to her still. I'll just sit in the car. I'm like, why, Mom? I got to tell you what's going on. Yeah,
it's crazy, because it's like, and it happens, that can happen forever, a random time, years down the way, it's like a random one, just not as often, Me
and my mom were just like this. So it's like, it's tough.
It is. So we'll get to the last one for everybody. And that 5th stage is the final, like we call it acceptance. And that's where I say nothing ever goes away. But that acceptance stage is at some point how you've chose to come to terms with it. Like, now we know it's reality. I'm not always sad. Maybe sometimes I can also be happy and laugh about him, her, whoever, where you've got this overall sense of peace. Not, there's times that aren't peaceful, but we've gotten into however long it took us, whether it's a year, 10 years, a month, everybody's different, but we've gotten into that. Acceptance doesn't mean like we're okay like that they're gone and we don't miss them. That's not what acceptance is. It's just more of like we've come to terms with it and we're like, okay, this is done. This is where we're at, but I'm going to be okay. I'll be peaceful, like that, rather like the anger's gone or whatever it is. And so a lot of times though, throughout those 5 stages, that is a big mental health issue. And that's why that's one of our topics, is because when it does impact mental health, whether some people may actually fall into a real clinical depression, maybe they don't, or they'll get bouts of anxiety when they can't pick up the phone. And then they're like, oh my gosh, but who do I talk? This was my only person I talked to. And then they'll have anxiety or panic attacks or things that, not that, and this isn't, again, I like to always say, this is not everybody. We're just talking in general of how it can affect people mental health wise. And so there's trauma responses. People have trauma responses when they lose someone around them, no matter how they're losing them, that they'll sometimes turn to. And when I say trauma responses, that can even delve into, I turn to a substance to make me feel better. Now we've got a whole nother issue. I'm really sad. I'm depressed. I don't want to feel like this. So we do the temporary relief. Temporary reliefs obviously could be anything bad for you that you're turning to make yourself feel better, at least for a little bit, because I don't want to feel this. And that's what we do with a lot of things that upset us or hurt us. It doesn't have to be grief, but that is one of the things that we all tend to do, is not want to feel what makes us feel bad.
Oh, dude,
and
I had to
normal.
check myself like 2 weeks ago because I was looking at how much I was drinking. And I was like, I'm literally just drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And I was like, no, we can't be doing this. So 2 weeks ago, I just like kind of made a stop, and I'm just working on different things. And I've drank like once since then, but it was like 6 to 8, which was really more like 12 to 16 because I was pouring doubles a night.
And see,
still doing my stuff, but I was like,
you realized it. So see, that's where it sets in, where you're like, we turn to things, but as soon as we realize it, that's the first step of saying, oh, whoa, like this is something I need to fix. Like as long as you're moving forward, as far as each day is a little better from whatever it is that you're trying to get away from, you're doing it okay. Yeah. And so,
and the piece where I finally, I guess, hit the piece with my mom too was when I realized that she's no longer in pain. Yep. She had a really tough time with PTSD and depression, and we all tried to help her with that, but it's tough, right? It's super tough.
Well, she was grieving. Knowing that she was at these end stages and things. So that was grief too.
For sure, she was scared. There was all that stuff, but I guess the last thing I'll say is I tell my friends, and this is one of the things that helped me, was she's on the beach smoking a blunt with Jesus.
I don't know what she's doing there, but we can say I know she's with Jesus. I did meet her, know her. My mom loved her. So I don't know that they do that there. I'll need to research.
Mom, you got to let me know.
I will see. I'll have to research that one. But that does bring in that's it's a good like entryway though to part of healing. So if you are in grief, you go through these coping strategies.
For sure.
And so instead of taking the bad one, which sometimes we do, or you take the bad one and then move forward to the good one, but coping strategies can range from, just want to throw this out here for people that may be grieving, is that one, of course, therapy. You don't always have to seek therapy. I'm not saying therapy is always necessary, but it is helpful if you can find a therapist you're comfortable with.
I know a good one.
Oh, well, let me know. I need to know who that is.
Her name's Dr. Hackford.
I was kidding. There are many though, because you might not be right here where we're at.
Yeah.
I'm always down though, honestly, for even just to speak to somebody through messaging or and not charge you. Like if you're having a really bad moment, email us. We have an email. Private message me. I'm honestly
hydratedmindandsoul@gmail.
Sincerely, I will help you through if you're having a rough time and you got a moment where you feel like you can't talk to somebody. Shoot me a message. Send an email. I know email might not be as quick as a message, depending on what I'm doing, but I will answer you. And but take some of those good coping strategies, which could be anywhere from a hobby to journaling to making a poem to, finding the exercise, like whatever it is that you replace that, take something new, go somewhere, the river or the beach and look at this, something beautiful, whatever. Everybody's different, but just like if you're looking for something that's a temporary fix, try to use one that becomes a permanent fix because it's something good for you. So, even if it's just being mindful and having the mindset of knowing to swap, like, hey, I really want that drink, but instead I'm going to journal, or instead I'm going to pray, or instead I'm going to call my friend and
50 push-ups quick.
Whatever. Yeah. Because then the exercise is a good one because I did turn to that only health-wise from the cancer, but it has been a very, very a big change, and a lot of that. And it truly does, spark the endorphins and all that stuff when you do it, even though I had wanted nothing to do with exercise.
Just
I do now.
Don't do 2 energy drinks before you run.
Yes. Just don't do 2. Like maybe 1 or half. Take a couple sips, run, and then finish it when I get back. So that's my new, we're not supposed to talk about the energy drinks with Mikey, but we're honest here. So, but that's okay. So, but different, really, really quick, because I have a couple statistics, but one I want to make sure I get out there is children that go through grief. Lots of children experience grief of losing someone in their family, their children. So most of the people they're close to are older than them. So a grandparent, a parent, whatever. But at a young age, when you lose somebody at a young age, that's where it can be the most impactful, whether it's negative or positive. And statistics do show, which is not surprising, that a child that goes through grief, especially when it's somebody very close to them, do tend to, their school academics start to lower, at least initially. And then if they do, get the help they need, one of the other big ones is social withdrawal for the young kids, kind of isolating themselves and feeling different because the other kids don't really relate, especially when they're younger. Like we're talking about teens and stuff. We are. I mean, the teens do too. But the statistic I have for that is that when I was researching this, and this is through the National Council of Psychiatry and the Department of Education, is that only 15% of schools in the United States, anyways, here's what I'm talking about, have specific, yes, they have counselors, yes, they have school psychologists, but only 15% have actual specific policies that support grieving children. That's not a law. That's not good enough. Like that, there needs to be more there.
That's a real low number.
A kid loses, sometimes we don't even know. They come to school, nobody's told us or whatever. But if we know, just offering the grieving support, we have a counselor if you need it. No. The kids don't know what they need or want. An 8-year-old's not going to be like, oh yeah, can I go see the grief counselor today? No. They have no idea why they're sitting by themselves in the corner or that what's going, they know they lost somebody, but all these feelings they're experiencing, they don't know, like, hey, can I talk to the school psychologist today, who is not really a real psychologist and travels to 5 different schools because our school district is short on all staff, and that's not in a negative way to any of the schools. That's just the real reality of we're short. And so they might not even be there the day that the child's experiencing. So just specific policies in place that people that are not those support staff people that can handle that know, hey, we should do this or offer this to this kid for today, and then get them, maybe help them in a positive way, say, send them to the, all these different things that's a whole, hour worth of saying what to do, but something that helps the child, and it's not the child's decision or the other parent or grandparent or whoever is with them, but also they're grieving too. So let's help them help the kid. So we're helping both at the same time. So those are that I wanted to make sure to get out there, because people might not know, like if you've lost somebody and you have a child that seems like sometimes children act happy, they stuff it down too. They don't want to feel this, like, hey, what happened to my dad? And all of a sudden, oh, dad's in heaven. They don't know how to process that. Like, they don't know what exactly does that mean. They don't know how to process it. They're just being told something, but they don't really understand that. And that understanding, yes, they're young, but understanding it and explaining things that you probably think are too young to explain to a child actually will help them.
Yeah, 100%.
So I wanted to get that out for the kids part at least, but
Dr. Hackford, the statistic queen.
I have to have my statistics because it helps me to know where we are doing good and where we're falling short, in this realm of psychology and psychiatry. But it's kind of and mental health and therapists and all that, our whole all together.
It's good to know numbers.
Yeah, it does, because then it helps you to know kind of more of where to hone in and focus and those kind of things. But
like how much of our brain is plastic now, right?
Yeah,
like
we know that. Yeah, and how much of it's composed of water.
Yeah,
and you're replacing it with plastic. So gotta be careful.
That's a bad swap.
Yeah, it's really bad. And our sign actually, it has a stand. Okay, we're not using contraband.
No contraband today.
Just so everybody knows, we're all good. We have corrected that issue on our show. So it's approved by Mikey, sacred water expert here.
Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for today. Definitely follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Email us if you would like to hear anything, talk about something different. Make sure that you definitely follow us, like, share, follow everything. And we are out.